It's funny how the New York Jets went from legit the laughingstock of a division for years to potentially a frontrunner to win it all. And how could they not be? The Jets were fun to watch last year, but honestly in a bad way. The Zach Wilson era was a laughingstock, but the Jets still had some good players and an elite defense. After last season, it was clear that if the Jets wanted to win, they needed to do something about the quarterback situation. So they did. Like they did years ago, the Jets decided to trade for a future Hall of Fame quarterback from the Packers. In 2008, it was Brett Favre, and this offseason, Aaron Rodgers had that same fate. The Jets haven't exactly had stability at the quarterback position in a very long time, and that's basically the entire reasoning behind why they went out and traded for Aaron Rodgers. New York had to give up a second, sixth, and conditional second that'll become a first if Rodgers plays 65% of plays this season. The two also swapped first, and the Jets got a fifth rounder back too. Honestly, that's all very worth it for what they could have in Aaron Rodgers. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks in league history. But can't forget, Mans is also 39 years old and coming off of one of the worst years of his career, which wasn't even that terrible. He had just 3,700 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. So even his bad seasons aren't very bad. And what does matter is that 2 seasons ago, he won his second straight MVP and 4th of his career. Rodgers really is that dude. In 2020, he literally had 48 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. That's just an insane stat line. Then he followed it up with 37 touchdowns to 4 picks and won another MVP. So why did he suddenly fall off last season? Was it age or a cliff? I mean, it's probably neither. There were 2 big differences. For one, Nathaniel Hackett left to become the head coach of the Denver Broncos. Hackett and Rodgers had a ton of success together, and it didn't take long for Denver to figure out that maybe he wasn't a great head coach. He got fired, and guess who went ahead and brought him in? The Jets. The two are back together, and Rodgers now already has familiarity in New York. Now, the other big difference was the lack of a true number 1 wide receiver. The Packers traded away Davante Adams because he wanted to go play with Derek Carr in Las Vegas. Clearly, that went well. Rodgers had to count on younger guys, and it didn't go so well, but it did get better as the year went on. Luckily, the Jets already have some pretty good weapons around him, though. When you look at the Jets offense, the first name that pops out is Garrett Wilson. I think everybody had high hopes for him coming out of Ohio State, but I don't think anyone expected him to take off immediately quite like he did. Wilson won Offensive Rookie of the Year after he had 1,100 yards and 4 touchdowns. He was a reliable wideout, even though the Jets had a damn circus at quarterback. Now, he gets to catch passes from Aaron Rodgers. The 2 in New York is clearly an Aaron Rodgers signing, Allen Lazard. Rodgers wanted Lazard, and the Jets made it happen. I mean, I don't really get it. The dude has negative separation, but he's spent the past 5 years with Rodgers, and the relationship continues to grow. Lazard is coming off of a career-best season with 788 yards and has scored 14 touchdowns over the past 2 seasons. He isn't the only familiar face there either, though. The Jets also signed Randall Cobb, who, yes, is still shockingly in the league, but he isn't even the projected 3 in New York. That would be Mecole Hardman. He missed a lot of last year with an abdomen injury, but did have the best season of his career the year before with almost 700 yards. He was a pretty steady wide receiver in Kansas City, so he should be pretty solid in New York. At tight end, Tyler Conklin had a good year with 552 yards and 3 touchdowns, but that was with Zach Wilson throwing him passes. When it comes to the run game, there are going to be a lot of eyes on Breece Hall. He only played in 7 games as a rookie, but he did have 463 yards and 4 touchdowns. But then, unfortunately, he tore his ACL. It was a strong, promising beginning to his career, and now he needs to get back to playing at that same level. Michael Carter is the guy right behind him, and he's actually pretty good too, so I wouldn't be too surprised if it's more of a 2-headed backfield this year. What makes what Hall and Carter accomplished last year so impressive is that the offensive line resembled a bunch of fucking traffic cones. They straight up sucked. Elijah Vera Tucker was the best guy on the line, but he only ended up playing in 7 games. And right tackle Mekhi Becton fractured his kneecap before the season even started. They're both former first-round picks, and they haven't really been able to stay healthy. If they do, the line will automatically get so much better. Connor McGovern is back at center, Laken Tomlinson is back at guard, and Dwayne Brown is still at left tackle. It's a very similar line, but it would have been at least solid if the guys could have stayed healthy. They had a borderline top 10 line in 2021. so there's definitely talent there, even if both tackle spots are different. When you look at the Jets defense, the one thing that's always talked about and easily sticks out is the cornerbacks. Sauce Gardner is that guy. He lived up to every ounce of the hype last year and went on to win Defensive Rookie of the Year with 2 picks and a league-leading 20 passes defended. DJ Reed was great opposite of him. He's a vet and he's entering his second year of a 3-year, $33 million deal with the Jets. The corners were good. Unfortunately, the guys above them at safety were terrible. Jordan Whitehead may be Darrelle Revis's cousin, but he sure as hell doesn't play like him, and he's back. It looked like New York had solved some of their problems when they traded a 7th rounder for Chuck Clark, but unfortunately he tore his ACL during OTAs. That led the Jets to sign Adrian Amos to a 1-year deal. He's entering his 9th year in the pros after 4 years with Chicago and 4 with Green Bay. Essentially, the Jets have 2 great positional groups, safety and defensive line. Last season, New York was 1st in quarterback hits and 3rd in pressure rate. Quinnen Williams is the big name on the line without a doubt. He's coming off of a 12-sack season, and he's finally turned into everything the Jets had hoped he could be when they took him 3rd overall back in 2019. Off the edge, Carl Lawson and John Franklin Myers had a combined 12 sacks last year. It's already a good group, but the Jets have made it even better. They signed Quentin Jefferson, who had a career-high 5.5 sacks with the Seahawks last season, and they used a 1st rounder on Will McDonald out of Iowa State. The last group left is linebacker, which is fine. CJ Mosley is the guy that everyone knows about. He's been a 2nd-team All-Pro and Pro Bowler 5 times, including last season. Quincy Williams, Quinnen Williams' brother, also is coming off of a good year and was rewarded with a 3-year, $18 million extension. Overall, the Jets have a really good roster. At one point in 2022, they were 7-4, and it looked like New York was a shoo-in for the wildcard spot, but then they lost 6 straight to end the year. There was a lot of promise and a really good defense, but the Jets were clearly still at least one piece away, and that was at quarterback. Now, with Aaron Rodgers, I think the Jets could actually be a contender. But it's not necessarily that easy in the AFC East. The Bills have been the king of the division for the past few seasons, so they are Super Bowl contenders, but it just feels like they're still behind the top guys like the Chiefs and Bengals. Still, the Bills are expected to win the division, and they probably should be. The Dolphins were also good last year when healthy, and they actually ended up making the postseason. They have a good defense and a loaded offense, but there are still plenty of questions with Tua Tagovailoa. If he's healthy though, the Dolphins should be pretty damn good. Good enough to probably make a wild card. The Patriots are the very last interesting team left. They're still in the basement of the AFC East, but they're far from a bad team. If Mac Jones can bounce back with a real offensive coordinator this season and some improved weapons, the Patriots should at least be a solid team. Is that good enough to make the playoffs? Well, we'll see. That leaves the Jets, who have a superstar quarterback and a great roster around him. Now, that's easier said than done, but everyone was literally just talking about how the Jets were only one quarterback away from being a true contender. And now they have that guy, and it's Aaron Rodgers.